Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. My name's Cameron, and I want to talk to you about something that happens more often than it should. People love to judge others at face value. They size you up in a second based on what you're wearing, where you're standing, who you came with, and then decide what kind of person you are. Now you might be thinking, do people still act like that these days? And I wish I could say no. But if you've ever been talked down to or ignored, you already know the answer. When my sister's father-in-law snubbed and acted like I was invisible to him at my sister's wedding, but tried to act nice when he found out who I really was, I sort of returned him the favor. Now, you might be wondering what made him react like that so fast. And I'll explain. But to really understand the whole story, I have to take you back to where it all started. My sister Ashley and I were raised by our father. We didn't grow up with our mom. She left when we were still little kids, got remarried, and started a new life somewhere else. It was just the three of us. And to be honest, we were okay. My dad was a businessman. He had his ups and downs like anyone trying to run something on their own, but he made sure we never lacked the basics. That man worked hard. And even though he wasn't perfect, he was present. We thought it would always be that way. Then one morning, our lives changed. I was almost done with college, probably just a few months left to go. Ashley was wrapping up her final year in high school. I still remember the phone call that morning telling me that there had been a car accident. Our dad didn't make it. You can't prepare for that kind of thing. No matter how old you are, when someone tells you your father is gone just like that, it breaks something in you. I drove home in silence that day. Ashley was waiting for me. I was the one who had to tell her. She broke down right there in my arms. But the worst part wasn't even the grief. It was everything that followed. Turns out, my dad had some serious debts tied to the business. Loans, missed payments, and financial issues he must have been trying to fix quietly. Once the news of his death reached the banks, they didn't waste any time. They seized the house, the cars, the office building, everything. Within weeks, everything we had disappeared. There were no savings left. Just the clothes in our suitcases and two grieving siblings trying to figure out what the hell to do next. I'll never forget the moment after the funeral, when everyone had gone and it was just me and Ashley, and I remember thinking, this is it. That's when it really hit me. We are all we have left. After we buried my dad, I didn't have the luxury to grieve the way most people do. I was the only one left to take care of Ashley. While other students were planning graduation parties or internships, I was staring down a future where rent, food, and bills were all on me. I didn't know where to start, but I knew I didn't have the option to fail. I pushed myself to finish college, barely. I took on whatever jobs I could find. During the day, I was a student, and at night, I was everything else. Barista, delivery guy, temp office assistant. You name it, I probably did it. There were days I didn't sleep. I'd leave for work before sunrise and come back after midnight. My body was exhausted, but my mind never stopped racing. I had to make sure Ashley had what she needed. Every penny I made was stretched thin. Of course, trying to juggle all of that meant something had to give, and for me, it was my relationship. I had a girlfriend back then. She was sweet, supportive at first. But slowly, the late replies, missed calls, and last-minute cancellations started piling up. She'd say things like, "You're never really present," or "I feel like I'm not a priority." And I get it. I don't blame her. It wasn't fair to her. She wanted a boyfriend who could be there emotionally and physically. But at that point, my energy was already spent. I didn't have anything left to give anyone else. So I broke things off. Not because I stopped caring about her, but because I knew what I had to focus on. I had to give all of myself to one thing, getting Ashley and me out of that hole. That was the only thing that mattered. I told myself, there'll be time for love later. Right now, she needs me more. After college, I landed a corporate job, just something that paid the bills and gave me some stability. I wasn't exactly passionate about it, but I knew I couldn't afford to sit around waiting for the perfect job. I had bills to pay and a little sister counting on me. Still, even while working that 9 to 5, I made it a point to keep learning. I was always taking short courses online, picking up certifications here and there, anything that could give me an edge when it came time for promotions. I needed to earn more, save more, and plan better for my sister's future, too. Then, one day, I found out that two of my old college buddies were working on a software project. They were developing an AI-based tool for automating back-end workflows. It sounded ambitious, but something about it caught my interest. I reached out to them and asked if they needed help. I wasn't an expert in AI, but I had business sense, marketing skills, and most importantly, I was hungry to build something of my own. That's how I joined them. The startup became a side hustle. I'd go to my corporate job during the day, come home exhausted, then spend nights and weekends working on this project. It wasn't glamorous, and there were times when I'd fall asleep on my laptop, wake up with a stiff neck, and still push through. I was doing everything I could to keep myself and Ashley afloat. The early stages of the startup were rough. There were technical glitches, disagreements over features, and more than a few nights where we thought the whole thing might just fall apart. One of the co-founders, a good friend of mine, got tired of the constant uphill battle and walked away after about 2 years. I didn't blame him. We'd sunk a lot of time and money into this thing, and the returns just weren't there yet. I honestly thought about quitting too. There were days when I'd look at my bank account and wonder if I was just chasing a fantasy. I had already lost so much money and sleep, but something in me kept going. I kept telling myself, if this works, it changes everything. And finally, it did. We launched a new feature, an automated logic engine that allowed companies to streamline their internal workflows. Clients loved it. Slowly at first, then suddenly all at once, word started to spread. We were getting calls, emails, and demo requests. Industry blogs picked up on what we were doing. It felt surreal. After all the setbacks and sleepless nights, people were finally noticing. But even then, I didn't quit my corporate job. Not right away. I was still playing it safe, still watching every dollar. My co-founder, the one who stuck it out with me, ended up becoming the public face of the company. He handled the networking events, the interviews, and the speaking gigs. And I was fine with that. I didn't care about the spotlight. I was the guy in the background, making sure things ran smoothly, handling the operational grind, and keeping things afloat. Looking back, I realized that those years shaped me more than anything else. The pressure, the sacrifices, the stubborn belief that I could do both, build a business, and be there for my sister. They all molded me into who I am now. So, one day, I had just gotten home from work. I barely had time to sit down and catch my breath when Ashley called. She sounded like she had something big to say, but wasn't sure how to start. That alone made me pause. Then she told me, "Cam, I'm getting married." I blinked at her for a second, thinking I had misheard. I knew she was seeing someone, sure. We talk. But marriage? That soon? I'd barely even had time to memorize the guy's name. Naturally, I started asking questions. I trust Ashley, but I needed to understand what was happening. I asked how long she'd been seeing him seriously, and why things were moving so fast. That's when she told me they'd actually known each other for years. Apparently, they reconnected after college and had been serious for a while before she even mentioned him to me. I could tell she was genuinely happy, and that matters more than my personal timeline of how things should go. She also said her fiancé wanted to meet me. Of course, I said yes. I'm the only family she really has, and if someone's going to marry my sister, he better be willing to have a conversation with me first. So we set up a casual dinner. That evening, when I opened the door and saw the guy's face, something clicked. I knew I'd seen him before. We shook hands, sat down, talked, and that's when I connected the dots. Turns out, his father is one of the major clients. In fact, his father had been aggressively trying to buy us out for the past few months. But I never thought much of the man beyond business. And now, here I was, sitting across from his son, who wants to marry my sister. That information was a bit of a jolt. I didn't show it, though. I just listened and tried to understand what kind of man this fiancé really was, outside of who his father was. Because let's be honest, parents don't always define their children. Ashley must have sensed my hesitation because after the meeting, she pulled me aside and reassured me. She told me she wasn't being pushed or rushed into anything. She said she'd known him long enough to trust him and that the timing felt right to her. And when I looked at her eyes, I could see she meant it. The first time I met Ashley's soon-to-be father-in-law was during the wedding planning phase, one of those family meet-and-greet situations. I didn't go into it expecting to be welcomed like a king, but what I definitely wasn't prepared for was how cold the man came off right from the beginning. The moment I walked into the room, I could already feel he was sizing me up with his eyes before even saying a word. He barely even looked at me when I introduced myself. At some point in the conversation, he tilted his head slightly and said, "Oh, you're just her brother?" I assumed her father would be here. It was one of those statements where the words sound innocent on paper, but differently in person. It was like I wasn't enough to represent our side of the family. I took a breath, told him plainly, "My father passed away many years ago." He barely reacted. He just moved on. Then asked me what I did for a living. Now here's the thing. At that moment, I knew exactly what kind of man I was dealing with. The type that wants to know your title, your salary range, who you know, and what circles you move in before deciding if you're worth talking to. I could sense he is already trying to place me in a box. Still, I wasn't about to give him the satisfaction of a performance. So I kept it simple. I just told him I work a corporate job at the moment. He nodded slightly, but didn't say much in response. So I smiled. I had a feeling the day would come when that same man would look at me very differently. So, the wedding day finally arrived. It was one of those beautiful afternoons when everything felt right. My sister looked stunning. You could tell she was happy, and that was all I wanted for her. I was making small talk with a few guests when the father-in-law walked past us. Now keep in mind, I was standing right there. He glanced over, met my eyes for half a second, then looked away. It was obvious, intentional, and, to be honest, unnecessary. He had already made his opinion of me clear during the wedding planning stages, but I thought he'd at least fake civility in public. Still, I didn't react. I just kept talking to the people I was with. That was my sister's day. I wasn't about to let some ego-driven snob ruin it for her, or for me. Some things just aren't worth the energy. A little while later, during the reception, one of the organizers walked up to me and said, "You're up next for a short speech." I was like, "Wait, what speech?" Apparently, I had been added to the lineup without knowing. At first, I thought about declining, but then I figured, why not? My sister deserved to hear from me on her big day. So I walked up there, grabbed the mic, and took a breath. I hadn't prepared anything, so I just spoke from the heart. I started by introducing myself. "Hi, I'm Cameron, Ashley's brother." A few heads turned, mostly because many people probably assumed our parents would be up there instead. Then I said, I wasn't just her brother growing up. I became her guardian when I was barely out of college. You could feel the shift in the room. People started paying more attention. I shared how we lost our dad unexpectedly in a car crash, and how that flipped everything upside down. My sister was still finishing high school. I was just wrapping up college. We had no one else. Our mom had remarried and hadn't really been in the picture for years. So it was just the two of us. I talked about how I juggled multiple jobs to keep us going, how I sacrificed a lot, including relationships, to make sure she had the life she deserved. Then I casually mentioned, all this while, I was also helping build a startup from the ground up. I glanced at the door and smiled, shout out to my co-founder, who just got here, fashionably late as always. There was a pause in the room, that kind of pause where people are processing what they just heard. The energy shifted again. I didn't say it to show off. I said it to give context, to help people understand why my bond with my sister runs deep, and why I was proud to be standing there watching her begin a new chapter. I ended the speech by saying how happy I was that she found someone who loved and respected her, and that I was confident she was in good hands. After the speech, I stepped down and headed back toward my seat. Before I even got there, guess who was suddenly interested in talking? Yup, the father-in-law. This time, he was all smiles, like we were old friends or something. He made a beeline for me and my co-founder, shook both our hands firmly, and started praising our software like it was the best thing since sliced bread. Your platform's been a complete game changer for my company, he said. I've actually been trying to buy you guys out for a while now. I just nodded politely and said, that's good to hear. Maybe we can talk business sometime after the wedding. I didn't want to get into anything heavy right then. But then he leaned in and asked, why didn't you tell me you were a co-founder when we met? His tone wasn't accusatory, but you could tell he felt blindsided. I turned to face him fully, looked him in the eye, and said, why should I? So you could fake being nice to me. He froze. I just said it plainly. And then I walked away, leaving him standing there like a man who just realized he misjudged the wrong person. So where do things stand now? Well, to keep it simple, nothing changed on the surface, but everything changed underneath. We never sold the company to my sister's father-in-law. Not because we were being petty, but because it just didn't feel right. He tried to buy us out before, and I knew he wasn't coming from a place of genuine respect. It felt like he wanted control, not partnership. We stayed the course, and the company grew on our own terms. Funny enough, his company still uses our software, still pays the license, still sends support emails. We treat him like any other client, professional, polite, but nothing more. It's strictly business. What matters most to me now is that my sister's doing great. He's respectful to me, even after everything that went down with his dad. That says a lot about his character. And honestly, that's what gives me peace. Whatever awkwardness there might have been with his family, Ashley's happy. And for everything we went through, that's all I wanted at the end of the day. Now I want to share a few things this whole experience taught me, lessons I carry with me every single day. First, never assume someone's worth based on what they look like or what they tell you. You really don't know what someone is carrying or what they've built from scratch. I've walked into rooms where people looked past me like I didn't matter until they saw the title under my name or recognized the company I co-founded. That kind of respect is empty. If you can't respect someone when they're quiet and humble, your respect doesn't mean anything when they're successful. Second, respect should be your default, not your currency. Don't give it only to people who can do something for you. Don't wait for someone to prove they're important before you start treating them right. You don't lose anything by being kind. You lose a lot more when you're not. And finally, sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one keeping it together for everyone else. They're the ones carrying weight you don't see. So, next time you feel the urge to overlook someone, pause. Ask yourself why. And maybe just choose to respect them anyway. To wrap this up, I'll say this. True respect isn't something you demand or buy. It's something you earn through how you treat people, especially when no one's watching. Status, money, power, those things fade or shift. But character sticks. The way you talk to people, the way you carry yourself, how you respond when you think no one's paying attention. That's the real definition of who you are. Everyone has a story you don't know. Be humble. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think or reminded you of something you've experienced, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for sticking with me, and I'll see you in the next one.